Hey everyone, this is Alan over at Cobblers Plus in Denver, and today we're going to be working on these beautiful all red Christian Louboutins. They look really nice with the all red like that, with the red sole and matching red heels. It's very cool.
I'm Alan Trushkov. Join us today and enter our world of a cobbler to see the craftsmanship it takes to rebuild and restore footwear and other leather goods, as well as recommendations from our industry.
But what we're going to be doing today is putting on one of these protective soles. Now this isn't one that we carry. Um, this couple, they bring them in, their Louboutins in every now and then and bring in their own soles. So it's not a bad sole, definitely. Just not exactly one that I like all that much personally. It's got a little bit more of a texture to it, and it's got more of that orangish tint to it. I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely closer than some of the other red soles out there nowadays. So it's not a bad match at all compared to some things that I've seen. But it does give a little good traction and longer durability, and it stays red all the way through on these, which is definitely a big plus. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start by taping everything off because, of course, we always have to protect that upper. It's an extra step that we like to take just as a precaution, even though we have, the proper equipment and we usually are very cautious about everything. But we like to take it a step further and make sure that we tape everything up on the upper so that nothing happens during the repair process to it, at least the section that we're going to be working on. We're not doing anything on this back area here, so we just have to tape it off from about right there all the way around to the other side right there. So we'll go ahead and get that taken care of. I'm going to do that all off camera, so I'm not wasting your time too much, because taping, of course, it's a time consuming process. But once I've got it taped off, I'll get you back over here and then move on to the next step. So we'll see you in a little bit. All right, so we've got it all taped off. Not bad looking with some blue on it, don't you think? But I think I like the all red a little better though too. Alright, and then I also use some tape basically to mark off where the protective sole will be. At this point, we're going to go ahead and cut it. Now with the protective soles on these, we prefer to cut it just because it makes it a much more cleaner cut. There are some shoes where we end up just sanding it out. So with the Louboutins, for example, we end up cutting it right there at a straight line and just a little bit off here, and then the rest of it we sand out on our machine so that the adhesion process is a little bit better. But right where the sole ends up connecting, basically, well, not connecting, but right where it starts, we want it to be as flush as possible. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter what kind of sander you have, it's not going to turn out perfectly flushed if we just sand it out. So we're going to use a skiving knife here and very carefully just try to cut it. At this point now, we're gonna start cutting into it now from the side. So just like that there. Now this part here, it takes a lot of practice. There's a lot of shops that actually don't do it this way as well still. They still just sand it out and then afterwards touch it up with different paints and everything once they sand out that protective sole that's over here. Now we sometimes have to touch it up, especially when we have a pair that's been worn a little bit. Sometimes this area can get a little nicked up and everything, so there's not much we can do about that. But we always try to fix it up afterwards too, so that there's no unusual marks that are clearly visible, at least from up close. Of course, it'll be a little more visible, but from a distance, definitely gets fixed up and not so visible. But a brand new pair definitely makes it a lot easier to do. All right. fix it up just a little bit in a few spots. Sorry, it's a little bit of a tough spot to basically try to get the camera to record properly, but sorry, got interrupted there with a phone call, but yeah, so kind of touched it up just a little bit in a few spots here. Kind of have to go through and scrape it slightly. Alright. And this is where my pickiness comes in. Small little spots. Start trying to touch them up all the time. I don't know why, I'm very picky about that. But just for if anybody's wondering, it's just basically a regular old razor blade knife like that there that we use. They're a lot easier to use than some of our other knives on these spots, just because these get really dull quickly when cutting through leather like this, so we end up just doing it like that. But I already checked it out here to make sure that everything's sitting there flush. Looks very good, nice and flush. And now at this point I just got to do the other one and then sand everything out. I won't really bother you too much with the sanding. I'll show you what it looks like afterwards, and then we got to start gluing it. So I'll see you back here in just a little while then. Alright, so we're back here. We got everything sanded out at the bottom there, all roughed up so that the adhesives can stick better. Now it is definitely something that we have to do. We always have to sand out this surface area because this smooth red texture here, well, smooth surface, not textured, it won't adhere at all. I've had requests in the past where some have asked, without sanding out the bottom, can we stick something on? No, you cannot. Unfortunately, the reason is because this finish is much too smooth and no adhesion process will stick to it properly. It'll start to peel up immediately after just the first wear. And that's kind of one of those key things where those clear protective soles that some of you have been using and seeing for the Louboutins, they're very, very temporary. They wear out quickly and they peel up very quickly, so you're going to damage the original red bottom on here regardless if you use that. So it may protect it for a single evening, maybe two at most, and then it has to be replaced right away. Otherwise you're just going to damage the red. And in some cases also, those red the clear protective soles that are stuck on, they don't cover the entire sole. Sometimes they just cover the center area, and it'll help some, but if you catch a corner or if you have such a pointed toe like on these ones here, you're gonna wear out the red on it. So you definitely have to make sure, if you're using those, you have to keep that in mind and make sure you're changing out that clear protective sole often. We don't stock them, unfortunately. We refuse to stock them because of that. I already see it, complaints coming through constantly. Oh, you guys just put this on for me, and you know, you charge me $10, $15, whatever those things run. I don't know. I haven't looked into the cost. I've looked into it, but I don't remember what they run. 10, 15, 20, $100, doesn't matter whatever it would have cost. But I just see these complaints coming through. You put these on, I wore them twice, and my red bottom is already damaged. Well, that is going to happen, all right? And that's why we refuse to carry them in stock. Now, I have talked to some manufacturers as well about potentially making a durable, clear material that is like these here, but clear. Unfortunately, we still come back to that same exact issue, that it won't adhere to the sole well enough, and it'll peel up. And especially like this pointed toe like these, when it starts to peel up, you know, you might not notice it because it is on your foot, you're enjoying your evening, whatever you're doing, it'll peel up on the toe and you're still walking around in it, and then all of a sudden when you get home you realize that toe just got worn down pretty badly. there's nothing that could be really done about it at that point, other than, you know, touching it up with some Andalus acrylic, well, not acrylic dye, but the walk-on red dye here that's formulated to go on the bottom of the soles, or putting on a red sole like this. Now, I'm not too familiar necessarily with this brand, I would say. It doesn't feel like they have a finish on the bottom, so I haven't sanded these out. Just wanted to throw that out real quick. But anyways, back to the same topic that I was talking about. With these rubber soles, whether it's these or any of the other ones that we have, like Vibram, GTO, our mirror gloss Caselli, which is becoming very popular. It's got like a mirror finish to it. Grab one. Like this right here, so it's got a nice sheen to it. These are red all the way through, so even as you're wearing off the tread or finish, like these have tread on them, these don't. Even after you wear off the tread, or if you wear off the finish here, you know, it's still gonna stay red. When you finally stop seeing the red and you start seeing the leather underneath, like we just glued up, that is an indication of get those replaced, get those rubber protective soles replaced. This is one of the reasons why it's such a good idea to have any of these options. I mean, again, we don't stock this one here, but we've got this mirror gloss, we've got the Vibram and GTO, but that is exactly the reason why it's such a good idea to put these on a brand new pair, especially, or maybe worn only once or twice at the most, because it will be a perfect indicator of when it's time to replace it. Because if you start wearing out into the leather sole itself and you've worn out the leather completely, it does, one, cost more, two, it's not the original sole on there anymore, so there may be some kind of issues. I have a pair currently that came in today, a pair of Louboutins, where the entire side had blown out here on it because that leather sole was so worn out. It was worn out to the material, to the upper, and it just kind of blew out, and I have to fix that now. I mean, it definitely adds to the price. That repair alone was, you know, $100 just to get this section glued back. There was no major damage to the upper, but it just came apart. So gluing it all back together alone on that was going to be $100 worth of work on top of adding the protective sole. So, you know, it's definitely something that will save you money in the long run. But even if money is not an issue, especially, you know, on such a nice pair of shoes that you've invested money on, if you have the money, you know, to go out and buy a new pair, that's great. But if it's a special edition or it's a model that's discontinued, there are a lot of limitations with resoling them if you really damage them. I mean, we can reconstruct certain things on a pair of Christian Louboutins, but there are limitations. Some parts, if they get damaged because the sole is worn out, which I've had a few come through, we can't get those parts in. Even Louboutin, contacting them directly, they no longer stock those parts because that model was discontinued, and so they no longer even have any of those parts available. So that's another major reason as to why it's a good thing to have these on there. And as always, I always recommend, ladies, especially with your shoes, men just as equally. Men are a little bit rougher on their shoes. Ladies, your shoes are a little more delicate. When you come home, every time after wearing your shoes, every evening, whatever shoes they may be, very first thing you always want to do, I'll get these out of the way, pick up your shoes. When you take them off your feet, flip them over, examine them really quickly. It'll take you 30 seconds. Check the heels. If you don't see the metal sticking out, you're still fine. Make sure that the bottom is still fine. There's not any heavy wear. The toe especially, you see that little red line there? That's the leather sole on this pair right there. If you see it wearing too close to that upper, it's time to get that taken care of, because on a pointed toe like this, you could really damage that upper. And in some cases, if you damage it so badly, it might not be repairable too, just because you've destroyed that toe badly. And basically repairing it is not going to look original one bit. There's going to be some very visible, you know, repairs done to it. And I mean, it can be repaired possibly, but it's just not going to be original, especially on a pair of Christian Louboutins like this. You can't get it to look original, and that is just a horrible thing, to have a visibly repaired pair of shoes like that. You know, with the rubber protective soles, this goes only on the section that's not visible that much on the bottom, unless you kick your feet up onto a table or take your shoe off and start waving it around. Then it's visible. But otherwise, all of this still stays true to what it was originally from the factory. And you know, you don't want to do that, so make sure you examine it. Those are the two main things you always want to look at on ladies' shoes. Ladies' high heels right here, check to make sure there's no metal showing or anything like that. If you just started getting like a scratch or a nick, or the leather started folding up on this heel wrap right there, bring it into a cobbler, send it into us, send us a picture, so that we can at least identify it and let you know, okay, that can be held off on, you know, just a little while longer, or get that taken care of, or it's going to get worse, type of thing. Same thing with the toes. Pointed toes especially, they wear out very fast in some cases with you ladies as well. Some of you wear out that toe quicker than you wear out the heel. Others vice versa. Some of you wear out the heel faster than you do the toe. And if you don't have a pointed toe like this and it's just rounded, still keep an eye on it. Maybe you wear out the side here a little more, maybe this side. Keep an eye on it. Just, you see that red right there, that's how thin that sole is. Right there you can see the sole. So keep an eye, make sure that the thickness of that sole is about the same. Now, if you have one of these on, they're a very, very good indicator that it's time to get them replaced. If you start noticing some kind of area where it's very thin or it's completely worn out. There are, of course, other colors that we have, whether it's in the mirror gloss here or the Vibram or any other brand of sole that we may have. They work great on other shoes, on, you know, Gucci's, Prada's, Jimmy Choo's. We've got colors to match, quite a few of them as well. So, you know, it's just a very good minor investment in a pair of shoes that can be worth $500,000, even $4,000 or $5,000 shoes too. You know, these are nothing compared to getting your shoes protected and basically upgraded at that point. But the other thing, of course, also examine the tops to see how everything's doing. That's going to be very visible, of course. And then the insides here, this insole that's glued in, they are glued in. Your foot sweats, your foot will sweat, and especially because this is a high heel, it makes this insole slide down. Sometimes, you know, it'll slide down or start popping out. Just kind of look it over. If you really keep an eye out for that, we'll still be able to save that original insole instead of having to replace it with something that's more aftermarket. But anyways, at this point, I'm going to let everything dry and cure, and when it's time to stick the soles on, I'll see you back then. Alright, so we're back here again. I just pulled this guy out of the oven here, so it's a little warm. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and just start gluing everything here. Just laying it out nice and even. Alright, there we go. Okay. Give it just a little bit of hammering. Now with the adhesives that we use on here, it's recommended that it sits and cures for about half an hour to an hour. But because on Louboutins we never use a press on it, just because our presses do tend to go up to 800 pounds. Of course, we can regulate that, but we'd much rather allow these to cure overnight after just hammering like I did right now. And the bonding process is a lot safer when we put it on a press, or anyone does. I've seen some shops do that, and it becomes a problem. I mean, sometimes the original sole starts to come off in some spots or something, and it just turns out a huge mess. And I'd much rather not even take that chance in risking it. I'd rather just be patient with it and let it cure, you know, nicely, instead of rushing through it, which a lot of shops do. You know, time is money, of course, and everyone says, but you know, that's the right way to do it. And at this point, I can also cut it off, at least some of the excess. As you can tell, there's a lot of it. So we're just going to use our hooked knife like this here and just carefully go around and just cut off some of that extra. Now I'm cutting, of course, as close as I can to the original sole, but still leaving a little bit behind that will have to be trimmed out tomorrow once everything is cured. That's why we're going to let it cure, of course, because during the trimming process this sole can heat up a little bit and deactivate, and if it hasn't had a proper amount of time to cure, that's when problems can set in. But once it's cured, even if it heats up at least some, like it will, it won't deactivate. At this point for today, I'm done. I'm gonna go ahead and stick the other one. The rest of this, unfortunately, it just goes in the trash. There's not much usability for it at that point. So I'll go ahead and do this one, and it'll just be a few seconds for you guys, but for me it'll be the next day. So I'll see you tomorrow when we're going to start trimming it out and finishing these out completely then. All right, so we'll see you later then. All right, so it's the next morning now. We've allowed these to cure for a good little while now, so at this point we're going to go ahead and trim it. We're over here at one of our machines that's got a finishing attachment basically to it. Down here we've got what's called a heel trimmer, but we use it also for thin soles like this. It's got blades that spin really fast right here, so it's not actually going to sand away at it. It'll actually cut away at some of the excess rubber material there, and because it's got a nice guidance stopper there, it helps us out quite a bit as far as making sure that it doesn't go too far and sand away at the sole. And then up top here we have what's called our numcag pad, which will give us kind of a nice little touch up some of the edges here and there to make it nice and smooth and give us that more beveled edge basically, because we don't want to make it a straight cut. We want to bevel it inward just slightly. Makes it last longer so that the sole stays on for a longer period of time, and even from the side view it does look a little bit nicer. We've had a lot of people that like that look quite a bit more. If you're somebody who wants that straight cut, we can definitely do that, but I don't recommend it just because there is a higher tendency of accidentally catching that corner more and it peels up. But if you're fine with that, and then we just have to touch it up every now and then and re-glue it, and hopefully you catch it in time without actually yanking that whole sole off on accident. But anyways, at this point we'll go ahead and get started. It's gonna get a little noisy, but I usually fast forward this section and take out the sound completely. So let's go ahead and get going. Alright, so I've got that all taken care of now. It's sanded out nicely and trimmed, so a lot more flush that way and doesn't catch any corners. Now at this point we're going to go ahead and move back to our table, and of course I'm going to blow off all the dust beforehand and then start doing the edging on this, and you'll see what I'm going to be using for the edging, especially because this is all red. So we'll see you back here in just a second. Alright, so we're back now at the workbench. I blew off all the dust, and I did already brush it one time. We'll just go through one more time, brush off any excess. And now we're going to be using our Angelus Walk-On Red, formulated to go on the bottom of soles, but for the edging it's going to be perfect actually. So we'll go ahead and get that red back on there. And I could technically take off the tape, but still want to be a little cautious just in case, even though this is patent and it's easy to really clean everything off of it, but I'd still much rather have it protected and safe just in case. After I get this section taken care of, I will take off the tape though, however, this piece right here, to see how the section where it connects to the leather looks, make sure it's all flush and everything, and touch it up if there are any hairline spots there. Now with the Angelus Walk on Red, it's perfect because, again, it's not a regular paint. It is formulated to go on the bottom of these soles to touch it up. Angelus only makes it in 2 colors. They make it in the red and then the black as well. That one's called Walk on Black. And they don't really need to make much more of that because there aren't many other sole colors out there, I guess you can say, and there are other finishes for it. But red is a little bit harder, and black is a little more common, I guess you can say, for people to touch up the bottoms on. Okay. Alright, so now we'll just reveal the bottom area here. Perfect. Pretty good. Just a little bit of glue. Take our plantation crepe chunk here. And just touch it up and make sure there's no glue left over there. And just a little bit right here. Touch that up. I like to go across with this just in case, even if I don't see any cracks. Regardless, just gives a nice finishing touch. But I don't just leave it on there like that. Go through and wipe it off with my finger on this area. Took basically all of it off, but yeah, it was just to make sure if there are any minor cracks that even I didn't notice, and I usually have really good eyesight from up close. Can't see too far away very well, but up close I could read the numbers on a needle, no problem. But looking pretty good. Make sure there's nothing else there. Alright, now I'm going to set this one aside to dry for a little while, do the other shoe, and then I'll be back over here after it's all drying. It only takes about 5 minutes or so. By the time I'm done with this one and with all my talking and stuff, this one should be all dry and ready to go for the next step. So I'll see you back in just a little bit. So we've let these dry for a little while now. Now at this point, these guys are ready to get a little extra on there. We're going to be using our Saphir Beauty to Cure cream. It's got a little more beeswax in it and give it a little more of a shine basically on the edges here. Got it in the red here. And it's not really going to do much as far as like changing color. It's just to help us seal things up and give it just a little bit of that extra shine. I still want to make sure that I keep the tape on at this point just because this does get a little messy sometimes because you can't really control it too easily with a towel like this. So it's gonna get on that upper, and there's a solvent in these creams usually that have pigment like this, well, color. So we have to always make sure that we still have everything protected nicely. Set that one aside there. And it doesn't look too bad with the Walk on Red there, but it doesn't hurt to give it just that little extra kick with the shine. Okay, give that just a couple of minutes to dry as well, and then I'll grab my horsehair brush to buff it up after it's all dry, and we can start removing the tape. So we'll see you back in just a few. Alright, so these have dried for a good little while now. I'll just go ahead and brush things up just a little bit. Don't want to brush too hard. It's just a little bit there. Okay. Now we're done. Just start taking off that tape and reveal the finished product. If I can get that tape off. So there we go. go through some of these nooks and crannies there. Sometimes there's a single piece of dust or something just a little bit there. So I guess we're not completely done. There's one little piece that's bugging me that I can't seem to reach. Alright, so got that all taken care of. Nice and red there still. Now, of course, it's not an exact match in red there, just because, of course, Louboutin does have a patent on their red soles here, so it's always supposed to be off by law by just a little bit, by a shade or two. But you know, again, this isn't our sole here. This is not one that we stock, but it's not a bad match actually. I may have to look into this company and see if this might work as an option too. Like I said, we already have a few options at the moment. We've got the Vibram, the GTO, and the Caselli mirror finish, but it never hurts to have an extra option too. You know, we'd rather have you have multiple options than say this is all we have, that's it, either take it or leave it type of thing. I don't want that. I want to make sure that you're happy with the choices and you pick what you want, not what we say we have and that's it. Well, that one came off a lot easier. Guess it's the way I taped it all up. It's always in the fine detail work like this. Try to get every little piece of dust out. Okay. There we go. Not too bad. Alright. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's how we do the red Louboutin bottoms on these with the protective soles, or also some of you may know it as a sole guard too. And it's a bit more than some people really think. The steps that it takes, you know, the precautions that we take as far as taping it off, it really all comes together to really help improve the fact that if this was like a limited edition shoe here, which I haven't actually looked into it, it may possibly well be at some point, maybe discontinued, but if this was a limited edition, it would just be a shame that if the upper somehow got damaged on it during the repair process. And I mean, of course, we would cover the cost of the shoes. Any shop should be held responsible for damaging the shoes. But I mean, taking those extra steps and everything, it really can put you at ease, basically, that the fact that if you have these shoes here and we're working on them, you're not going to have any kind of mistakes like that. I mean, where a small nick can occur somewhere here during the trimming or sanding process, or somehow some of this cream or ink here, the sole walk-on red, got on the upper if you had like a suede top or something. So taking those extra steps and really trying to make sure that it's all protected really does put us at ease, and should put you at ease as well, knowing the fact that your shoes are going to be well taken care of properly. So again, there's multiple options. If you have your own soles that you bring in as well, we could always put those on, or we could use one of ours. There are shops I know that will refuse to put on any kind of soles that you bring in. We just let you know that if the sole wears out quicker than expected or something else, unfortunately we can't be held responsible for it, because it's not our sole. It's not one that we purchased or stood behind. If I get these soles in, I'm still going to go through a process of testing out how well it wears, the durability, the grip aspect of it. I'm not going to test it out on these, of course, just because these went onto these shoes here. So, but it seems like a decent sole. I mean, not bad at all. So we'll definitely have to check them out. Otherwise, if you have any questions or comments, of course, please leave them down below. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe. If you're wanting us to work on your shoes, you could always stop by our location. We're here in Denver in the DTC area. If you're not local or just live a little too far away or in a different state, you're more than welcome to ship them out to us as well. Just go to our website, cobblersplus.com, and under the mail-in order or ship-in order tab, I can't remember which one it was, just spaced out on that, but just follow the instructions on that. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out which tab it is. It's at the top, and just follow the instructions, put them in a box with the form that you fill out, and then send them on over to us after receiving them. Within the first day or two after receiving them, we'll give you a call, talk over the repairs, what kind of options you have, and any recommendations we may give you as well on it. And once they're all taken care of and everything, we just ship them right back to you afterwards. Otherwise, again, like I said, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. You could always give us a call or send us a message. All of our contact information is on our website there as well. But I just hope you liked the video of that process. I'll be letting out more and more videos with different types of soles that we'll be putting on, like the Caselli mirror finish that I showed you, maybe the Vibram as well. I have one already that I've posted that you may check out as well. It was a fake pair of Louboutins that I worked on. I made that video first so that it can help you identify how to identify fake Louboutins. These here are real, definitely, that's for sure. Everything lines up perfectly, the way it's the way the logo is printed on there, and everything lines up perfect on it, basically. So, and that's the beauty of Louboutins, there's perfection in them. So I know that for a fact that these are real. But if you have any concerns also about identifying if your Louboutins are authentic or if they are a knockoff, you could always bring that into consideration of bringing the shoes in for us to check them out. Or if you're again out of state, just send us some pictures. More pictures are always helpful to identify that. It's just a shame that there's so many fake ones out there and they're still charging the same amount as the real ones. Sometimes they're just a little bit less. But I always like to try to help anyone out that's trying to identify authenticity of Louboutins. So you could always give us a call or send us a message about that, or stop by too. But anyways, before I keep talking too much, I hope you enjoyed it all, and we'll just see you next time then.